It's now 7:19. Usually when kids return from their summer break, they're ready to tell about all the fun that they had. But not every kid has a summer like that one. And joining us to talk about how teachers should handle students is author and mother Tiffany Berg. And thank you for being with us this morning. You would think, and at least when I was growing up, that was a typical thing. The first assignment out of the gate. Let's ask, the teacher would ask you how your summer was, sometimes in front of everybody. But you're saying bad idea.
Well, I think, we look at things that are happening across the United States. We have regional tragedies, but then sometimes coming back from summer break, we've had personal tragedies.
Right, you have issues. And an example of this is, I have a father who has Lou Gehrig's disease. My sons they saw him over the summer. If someone asked them, they would probably say, yeah, he's not looking so good. So a good example, something like that. Okay.
Right, and so often, as you said, kids come back from summer break, and in front of everyone, the teacher wants everyone to engage. So the question is asked, what have you done this summer?
Right.
And for those children or those teenagers that have had a tragedy or a loss over the summer, it's a time that they disengage, and it makes it very hard for them, and oftentimes they're triggered by that question.
Is it the same across the board? I would assume, and I could be wrong, but since you've looked at it and you've had your own personal tragedy, and maybe we should establish that a little bit too, that you lost your husband a couple years ago. At the time, your kids were about 9 to 19-ish, those years, 10 to 19. Was it hard? Is it harder for the younger ones who don't know how to express, or is it harder for the older ones who understand more?
Well, I think it's across the board. I think they just respond differently. I think what we see is children, they just tune out. They're just very spacey. The lights are on, but nobody's home. And I think with older teenagers, we see a lot more rebellion coming out when they're in that grief
when they act out that way. How then, what is your advice for teachers or the academic world for making sure that they don't spotlight these kids who would say, yeah, no, it wasn't a good summer, and it was a bad summer, in fact.
Right. Well, and even in our family, after I lost my husband in 2009, it took a couple of months for our children to even start sharing that with their teachers and friends. And so advice would be, number one, don't assume it's been a great summer for everyone. Across the board, it may not have been. Secondly, create those experiences with students that are private. Maybe let's have an essay about what you did over the summer, or what was the good and the bad over the summer, so that you're engaging them, but in a private way, so that they're not exposed if they're emotional.
So it wouldn't necessarily be bad if a teacher put that as part of an assignment versus having them stand up, which, by the way, was, I hated that no matter what it was, to stand up or to say, hey, it's your turn to say whatever, which would be bad. You also say some advice is to ask deeper questions, and what do you mean by that?
Well, I think our initial response, anyone that's dealt with kids, is if they're acting out, maybe to ignore, or if they're disconnected, to just let them be quiet or shy. Maybe they're shy. There can be deeper issues, and so if you're, as a teacher or a staff, seeing someone that's disconnected or acting out, maybe there are some deeper reasons. So it just leads to ask more questions, ask deeper questions. What are you going through right now that is problematic?
Okay. We are not done. Tiffany is going to be sticking around. She wrote some books, and one of them is If Cancer Was a Fish, right? Something like that.
Yes, if cancer was a fish, I'd throw it back.
Right, throw it back, and dealing with that. So we'll be talking more about that and some other issues with children and things like that.